Hello everyone and welcome back to the channel. So yeah, I was right. Players love the game Ghost of Tsushima, unlike the Metacritic scores, which gave it an 83. It's even lower than a game like Death Stranding, which is said to be this game that's kinda boring in gameplay. The story was great, but the gameplay didn't really appeal to a lot of people. But I digress. Critics are always out of touch these days. And the user score here just reflects one fundamental idea about video games, that it is fun. So Ghost of Tsushima is a fun game. It has a fun fighting mechanic. It's actually praised for its really good combat system, that it depicts the way of the samurai or the bushido, and it depicts also stealth, like becoming a thug or a thief. You even see this cue telling you that you need to think like a thief and whatnot. And this contradiction is actually one of the pillars of the game. Should you fight like a samurai or should you fight like a thug? Should you care about your ethics as far as fighting is concerned, or should you care about saving people? And this is really an interesting concept, especially considering that old Japanese myths and fiction has always been about romanticizing samurais and ninjas and whatnot. And just like Reggie Fils-Aimé said, if it's not fun, why even bother? And that's why you see a lot of people playing retro games, and those games obviously aren't shining in terms of graphics, but they are very fun and people just go back to them. Actually, one other concept is the Nintendo Switch. It has these downgraded graphics, but it's a fun system to use. It is portable, so it's not about always the best graphics, and it's not about putting your identity politics in a game, but it's rather about if the game is fun, if it entices you to play it, and if it keeps you interested. And that is something Ghost of Tsushima is shining at. And when you see the reviews from notable people on YouTube like ACG or SkillUp and others, they perfectly portray this aspect of the game is fun, that the game atmosphere is very endearing to you, makes you wanna play more, makes you wanna enjoy more, carry on the story and follow where it leads. So let's look at the negative review scores here to see why some people didn't really like it. One person here gave it a 4, says the game could be amazing, but many nonsense dialogues, weak combat mechanics, and terrible camera make it look like a rushed product. To be honest, you could overlook the first issues, but the camera is really bad, worse than Demon's Souls, just to be clear. I really hope they do something about. I think the camera is something that some people didn't like, especially if you go into closed areas and you don't have this marker system to put the camera lock on one enemy. Sometimes it can be frustrated. I can give them that. I actually, when I played God of War, sometimes you lose the lock, and if you are in one of those really difficult fights like the Valkyries, it really becomes frustrating. But to give it a 4 only because of that, I think it's a little bit too harsh. Says weak combat mechanics, but I think a lot of people say that the combat mechanics of this game are a lot different than other open world games, and they are more praised than criticized. I don't know, probably this person is used to some kind of other fighting mechanics. And then we have someone who gives it a 0, calls themselves Xbox House, writes in Portuguese. I'm not even interested in translating what they say. It just doesn't make sense to give it a 0. And then here's someone who doesn't like The Last of Us Part 2 and also doesn't like Ghost of Tsushima, even though I think these games are totally different. But yeah, says after The Last of Us 2, all Sony products are mess for now. They massacred The Last of Us 2, so I gave a 0. Ghost of Tsushima isn't like an exclusive game, but better than Days Gone. Okay, and 0. On what ground? I don't know. And you can just keep on scrolling down there, and you will find some legit criticism, even though the score is questionable. But a lot of it just boils down to some generic sentences criticizing the game, probably for the sake of criticism. I don't know. But it also happens with all games, I believe. You can't really find a game that has like perfect score from everyone. There will be always those people who don't like a certain game, and that's their right. There is also this interesting piece of information that Famitsu gave Ghost of Tsushima a 10, and a lot of people are saying that Famitsu isn't really credible of a source when it comes to scoring games. But when you have other websites giving 10s out of 10s for other games, that subvert your expectations, quote unquote, and that change the worldview that you have, quote unquote, just like some stupid article criticizing Far Cry 6. So why shouldn't Famitsu give Ghost of Tsushima a 10 because it's a Japanese game maybe? Or because it shines in a lot of aspects and so they just ignored the things that this game should work on? I mean, the game is great, should be like a 95 or so, and of course it has its own problems. No game is totally perfect, there is always room for improvement, and that's why you don't give those perfect scores. And yeah, just like how I began this video, games are about fun, I'm just repeating it now, games are about fun. And Ghost of Tsushima proves that really well. There are a lot of games that prove that concept as well, but probably the last few months we have seen a lot of discussion about games like The Last of Us Part 2 and it being compared to something like The Schindler's List and whatnot. Neil Druckmann saying that it's not about fun. I think it has always been about fun. Games aren't movies or other sources of entertainment. It's about escapism in some cases, but it's also about having a good time after probably a long day of work. Doesn't mean that those games with dark themes don't really provide good experiences, but when you include identity politics in them and when you include your worldviews and you try to preach, it's going to flop hard. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the video, please give it a like and subscribe. It would be really helpful if you subscribe, comment, also tell your opinions, and I will talk to you again soon. Have a good one.